Hi everyone, so this is a video for the introduction to drama. It's interesting, my face here is kind of obscured by some words, but that's all right. Um, so we are moving towards thinking about talking about drama. So we talked about poetry first. We very quickly, because the semester is so short, had to move on to talk about fiction, short stories. Um, and unfortunately, while you're still working on your uh, fiction writing projects, we're going to need to start talking about drama. We need to hurry up because we've only got a few days left in the semester. So, drama is different, rather different from poetry and fiction that we've been looking at, in that the poetry and fiction, when you read that, either on an actual page or on the, on your computer, you are experiencing that in the way that the writer intended, right? The writer wanted you to open up a book or, again, bring up a document on your screen and just read those words. And so everything you need is there, right? Everything you need to understand is pretty much on the page usually. However, when we're looking at drama, we are reading basically scripts, right? And you recognize a script. You recognize this because you watch television, you watch movies. Those things have scripts, and it would be, what we're doing here when we're looking at drama. It's almost as if you were, instead of watching the television show or watching the movie, you just read the words on the page. And you can imagine that that would be a kind of an odd experience because there's a lot of other information that you aren't getting. You can, if you read the script, you can hear what the characters would say, and you might get some directions about where they might move or something like that. But there's a lot of information that you're not getting. Specifically, we don't know exactly what the people, what the characters look like, right? We don't see their actual faces. Who is playing these people, right? Because you could have different people playing them. What is their tone of voice? How exactly are they delivering the words? What is their body language? Where are they standing? How are they? What kind of body language are they using towards the other characters? Also, things like, where are they? There's a set. Like, what is that? The place where they're in. What does that look like? What is the lighting like? What are any, actually hearing some of the sound effects? There's a lot of information that's left out. And so what we're doing here when we're reading drama is, again, just like reading that script, this play, the script that we're looking at, this was meant to be produced. You weren't meant to read this. When Henry David Hwang, who wrote what we're about to look at, Trying to Find Chinatown, when he wrote this play, he didn't expect for anybody to just read it. What he wanted was that you would go to a theater and you would watch a production of this. You would see people on stage delivering these words. There's some music in the play. You would hear the music, right? Realize, obviously, here we can't hear the music. There would be some specific things in terms of lighting. There'd be specific things in terms of the costumes that the characters would wear. So there'd be all this other information that you were going to be getting. And so, as a tradition, what we do in English is that we read these scripts. But what it requires of us is to be able to think rather carefully about what is on the page and to kind of imagine what the play would actually look like. And this, by the way, is, an actual real life skill for some people, especially in New York City. Many people, work in the film and TV industry, and part of their job is looking at these scripts and turning them into full-fledged television shows or movies. And so they have to kind of imagine some things. They have to think about how will the character say this? Where will the character stand when this happens? What kind of costumes do we want the characters to wear? All this kind of information that's not necessarily directly on the page. There are people who have to kind of figure all that out. And that's one of the reasons why I usually have us think about drama at the end, because it does require imagination, whereas the poetry and the fiction, again, usually everything is right there on the page. But here you have to imagine, what does this look like? How would this character actually speak? And so as you're reading through this short play, that's something that you'll want to be considering, right? Imagining that this play would take, we're taking in front of you. What do you think it would look like? And some of the questions I'll have for you to address in here on the discussion boards have to do with that. Just to get to this, we've got some background information on Henry David Hwang, and so you can read that. And then it has down here the cultural context. This is something maybe that might appear in the program. If you went to go see the play, you'd get a program that would list the actors and the director, and just kind of like when you watch a movie, you've got the credits at the end. Since you can't have the credits at a play, they give you a little piece of paper, a little booklet that's got all that kind of information in there. And this might be in this cultural context, might be there. And so it says here, with the advent of the gold rush, by the way, is when gold was found in California in 1849. And it caused a lot of people to go to California looking for gold. So with the advent of the gold rush and the burgeoning development of the railroad in the early 19th century, a large number of these immigrants arrived to work in the United States. Many of these immigrants viewed their residency as temporary and did not wish to assimilate into American culture. We talked about assimilation we're talking about that for our fiction project. Others wanted to stay but longed for a neighborhood of their own, and as a result, Chinatowns were born, with the largest in San Francisco and New York. Chinatowns, such as the one referred to in this play, are distinguished by bilingual signs, as well as by numerous restaurants, stores, and businesses that serve the Asian population. And we should be familiar with Chinatown in New York, where there's the one seen as the more famous one in Manhattan, but probably the bigger one in Flushing. There's another one in Sunset Park in Brooklyn. And so we understand the idea of what that is. There is a Chinatown. It is a place where people who are recent Asian immigrants are going to live, and it says something about some of the issues that we're thinking about here. We've got this specific place in town, specific place in the city where people from those backgrounds are going to be living, and it's it's got an interesting aspect to it. It is America. These people many are citizens, but still there is this sense in which there's a kind of a separation there, and so a kind of a tension about what it means to assimilate, whether that to what extent that makes sense for people. How is it that people can hold on to one identity while simultaneously living in the United States and being fully American? So some of the issues that we've been dealing with from the very beginning, from Battle of the Breaths, play themselves out in these Chinatowns. So the play down here, it starts over here. It's called Trying Down Below Me, Trying to Find Chinatown. That's the name of it. We have two characters, Benjamin and Ronnie. And again, this is information that you might not know. Well, you would see who plays Benjamin and who plays Ronnie. And then you might not see this as the setting as a street corner in Lower East Side, New York City, in the present tense. Of course, their present is 1996, but and that's kind of, if you were putting the play on, you'd have to understand, okay, where is this taking place? What do I want the stage to look like? Things like that. And then there's this note on music, right? It's talking about what what music is, what the music is. I'm going to put a link in here. It says, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you right now, but um, it mentions in here things like fading on Hendrix-like virtuoso rock and roll riffs. Heavy feedback, distortion, phase shifting, wah-wah, amplified over a tiny Fender Pugnose. Fender Pugnose is an amplifier for an electric guitar. I'm going to put a link in the folder and you can look at that. That takes you to a YouTube video that playing Jimi Hendrix, who is a guitarist from the late 60s and early 70s. And so you can understand what that's supposed to sound like. And it's kind of important because realize if you went to see the play, I wouldn't have to direct you to that because you just hear it. Even if you don't know who Jimi Hendrix is, you know what that kind of sounds like, right? You'd hear it. But here I have to give you a sense about what's going on with that. I have to put in that link. But again, it shows you that all of the information that you need is not really here, right? That's the whole idea of the play. We don't need all of that. And then we understand, and we got some information about who the characters are, and you can read that. It makes sense. We can understand who the people, who Ronnie and Benjamin actually are, right? And we have some explanation of them. And then down here we see it says, Benjamin, and that's if we were putting this play on, the person wouldn't say Benjamin, but the person playing Benjamin would just start talking, right? And then the person playing Ronnie would just say this, right? And so, but again, we aren't getting a complete indication of exactly how they're going to be speaking. We don't get all of that kind of information. And so that's something that you'll have to fill in. So I want you to think about that as you read this. You can understand something about how you see the characters, right? How you see them interacting with each other. What do they look like? And again, that's one of the questions I'm going to ask you for the discussion board. And then I want you to look towards the end here. We've got two places here where Ronnie is going to speak, and it's a big, long thing. It's what we call a monologue. He's going to be speaking on some level like to the audience, right? Not necessarily directly to the audience, not like saying, hey, you, but he's going to be standing looking out, kind of looking out at the audience, speaking. And we're in some ways familiar with this from movies. We have situations in movies where characters, oftentimes at the end of the movie, will just start to speak almost directly to the camera. And that's kind of what we have going on here. This character, Ronnie, is going to be kind of speaking to the audience, talking about himself. It's almost like he's thinking out loud. And that's something that we do in drama sometimes. So Ronnie is going to do that there, and then over here, Benjamin's going to do the same thing. And so you can, just to keep that in mind, right, that's what's kind of going on here. Each character is telling us what they think. So go ahead and read the entire play. Again, it's a fairly short play, and then you can look at the other documents in the folder and respond to the discussion board.